Alright, welcome back YouTube. As you can see, there's a couple of changes. This is today's project, and we're in a different location. We're actually inside. Isn't that something? So this is, the way the lighting and stuff is set up is temporary for now. That's going to improve as time goes on, but I am inside on a work surface, sitting in a normal seated position, which is great. So I've set up shop in a storage unit I've got, and I'm going to be doing work in here from now on, at least the smaller stuff that doesn't require a lot of electricity. So right now we're running off of under 120 watts of electricity. I've got an inverter sitting in my truck. It's got a very large battery in the truck, so it's not going to run dead anytime soon. So I'm just gonna, I got a couple of desk lamps with LED bulbs in them, and I got camera and phone plugged in charging. Wear a jacket and warm clothes, and it's not a big deal. It's like in the low 30s. I'm fine. So what we're doing to this today is, this is actually my generator. It's one I got from work. Got a pretty good deal on it. It does run, it does produce power, it does everything it's supposed to do, other than a couple of small functions which don't really, it's not a big deal, like some of the lights on the, I'll just turn it around and show you. She ain't no spring chicken. She's ugly, but she got it where it counts. It works. So some of these indicator lights here don't really work, but that's not a big deal. So it outputs a 12 volt power here like it's supposed to, does the 120, and I've put a full load on it, and there's nothing, it does a full load with no issues. Needed some carburetor work when I got it, and the muffler was clogged up. So easy stuff. That's just regular. So I had it running a couple times, used it a couple times just to make sure it was good, and then I decided it sat up for a little bit, and then I noticed that the throttle control motor wasn't doing what it was supposed to. It was either wide open or holding an idle that it just wasn't doing anything. It's basically just the throttle was wherever it was sitting. You had to run in there and manually use your finger to move the throttle. But everything still worked, so I'm like, what's going on? So I get to looking around. There's service bulletins about these throttle motors, stripping out the gears in them, so that's what I thought it was initially. Well, I'm like, alright, I'm going to test it. The throttle motor's like $50. I'm not just going to go and slap down $50 and not know that's the problem. It could be this, this part here is the inverter controller board. Those things are 300 and something bucks. So, it probably wouldn't be worth putting that in it unless I found a good used one, substantially cheaper, which they're available. These are pretty common generators. Long story short, stepper motor's not the problem. Found the problem, and I found it because everything works fine when this front cover is off like this. But when you go to push it back in, then the throttle starts acting weird again. So I narrowed it down to a wiring issue, and there's actually good angle here. Move my desk lamps, my studio lighting. There's a connector, which I'll show you. There's a couple connectors on here that have some corrosion on them. Like I said, this thing is it's got some hours on it, but it's still functional and does what it's supposed to, so that's not a problem to me. Just it needs a little TLC. So what we're gonna be doing is taking this inverter board out, just laying it on the table here, and I'm gonna be cleaning these connectors, and I'm gonna see if I can pull the wiring harness from the inverter to the stepper motor and actually separate the pins out of the connector on that and clean the corrosion out of it, because that's the problem. There's corrosion and the terminal is kind of loose fitting. So I'm gonna correct that, and that's what we're gonna do today. So I'm not even really sure where to start here other than unplugging everything. So I guess that's where I'll start. But if you look back on that front plate, or if you're familiar with these, you'll know there's an eco throttle mode that was my first clue that something wasn't quite right with the controller board on it, is the eco throttle didn't work. Eco throttle basically it's a nice feature, and it's rare that you're going to turn it off. So that's why I didn't worry about it too much until I realized that it was connected to the issue with the stepper motor. Now that I'm already there and already can fix what's wrong with it, then we're going to go ahead and take care of it, because it's all really the same problem. The eco throttle, it idles it down and varies the RPMs and therefore noise and fuel consumption based on the amount of electrical load you're putting on the generator. And that's kind of nice, because one of the best features about these generators is they're small, they're quiet, and they don't use a whole lot of gas compared to other generators. They're pretty easy on maintenance too, so they're all they're an inverter style generator, and that's a good thing. When you have the eco throttle off, it works like a normal generator with, you know, a standard mechanical governor where it sits at a preset RPM, and whenever there's electrical load put on it, it just increases the throttle to meet the demand. And that would be good in certain cases where you have constantly changing load and you don't want the RPMs fluctuating, because you just don't need that. So if it's a situation where you're going to have things on and off intermittently but kind of stretched far apart, it might be good to leave the eco throttle on. Or if you're planning on doing it more long term, like if you're going to go to sleep, you have an air conditioner running, great time for eco throttle, because that's probably what it's made for, is those types of loads. Let's see. This lighting doesn't seem to be doing too bad. This, as I've stated in another video, this particular GoPro, I don't know about others because I've only used this one, but this particular GoPro doesn't do very well in low light conditions. And it looks like what you can see is not much different than what I can see, which is surprising. Normally it's a bit of a difference. I should be able to just take these screws out here that are holding this to the faceplate, and it all comes out, and then I don't have to worry with the big ground wires or anything like that. I am going to address the ground wires because they're corroded too. A lot of things around here, I don't know this thing's history at all, but the oil looks good in it. It's not disgusting, but it's not new either, but it doesn't have like metal shavings in it. It doesn't have gas in it. You know, the spark plug doesn't look like garbage either. But I will be doing a full tune-up on it. It does need a fuel line. It's got one that's leaking. It's a short section from the fuel pump to the carburetor. But just little things. You know, basic tune-up, and then that fuel line. The fuel filter, or air filter, is fine on it. It's not disintegrated. So, I'm not going to do this in this video, but I'm going to split this. This is an overhead cam engine in here. It's a neat little engine. It's a Honda GC100. I think it puts out around 3 horsepower, and it turns a little bit faster than most small engines. I think it turns in the 4,000 to 5,000 RPM range instead of 3,600 at full RPM. But it's an overhead cam engine, and it's got adjustable rocker arms, and you can't access that with the engine inside this red case. So that's something that's going to be done. You know, just as a preventative maintenance, I'd like to go ahead and I'd like to pull all of it apart and make sure that all that stuff's taken care of, because that'll affect, you know, performance and fuel consumption and overall noise. And I kind of like adjusting valves. I think it's neat. Something old school you don't really get to do anymore. But this thing's been operated in a salt, you know, like a marine environment. I don't know if it was used on a boat or anything, but where we're at, you're never more than about 10 minutes from the water, so on either side. So there's a lot of salt in the air. Therefore, this corrosion is due to that. I'm going to make sure that I put dielectric grease in this connector so I don't have to deal with this problem again. I'm going to put like a silicone paste type stuff in it. So there's the inverter and controller board. It's pretty nasty, actually. Got a bunch. I don't even understand how it's so gross. It's sticky. It has like greasy dust on it. I also have to address the starter rope on this. I'm not really sure what this is about. Oh, you can pull it farther out. But yeah, what is this? And it doesn't recoil all the way because I'm holding the handle and it's supposed to be recoiled. You don't really get much rope, so I'm gonna have to pull the starter out of it and handle that. But this generator should suit my needs quite well here in this storage unit. It'll give me 2,000 watts of power, and that's plenty. It's 13.3 amps, so it's 1.7 amps shy of a household breaker, so it's not too bad. I'm wondering if my little Hobart 140 welder, because it runs on 110, I'm wondering if, or 120, or whatever you want to call it, whatever your standard mains voltage is. It seems to be called different things. That one runs on regular household single phase power, nothing special. You don't need a dryer connection. I might actually be able to weld with this generator, which is kind of exciting for me. So, because if I can weld with the generator, then I can have all these lights running, probably more lights than this, and I think I have a bigger inverter somewhere else too, so I can run more lights, and then I could weld with it, so I can do a lot of work in this shop without needing to go somewhere else. So I've got I have a nylon brush somewhere. Where did I put that? So just as a gentle cleaner, I'm actually using an aerosol glass cleaner. You might see it as like a product placement on accident. I'm not going to be plugging for it, but there's an aerosol glass cleaner that I'm using, and it works pretty good for removing grease and stuff. So just because I don't know where, I don't want to use brake cleaner because this is all potted in epoxy, and you know, if some of the brake cleaner sneaks past in a crack or something and gets on that, you just don't want that. I love brake cleaner, but this is not really one of the situations I feel like using it in. And I don't know where my rubbing alcohol is. I don't usually work in here, so that'll change. That's another thing that'll get better with time, is the organization of this building, so that I can use it on a regular basis, possibly even a daily basis. I'm just going to run through here, clean all this stuff up, because all this dirt and grime, it can become conductive. You don't really want that either. It could cause some weird issues. But yeah, I'll show you the connectors here that are really the issue. It's going to be kind of difficult to see down in there. Let's see. But this connector here is the one that has the I think it actually is part of the load sensing, and this one here goes directly to the stepper motor. This is the output from the stepper driver. This one here is for load sensing and, you know, RPM readings and stuff like that. I don't have a schematic, or I didn't read any bulletins or any service information telling me what does what. I didn't need to go that far yet. But this one, if you wiggle it around, the problem manifests and goes away. This one, if you unplug it, the throttle just dies. Actually, if you unplug this one completely, it shuts off. So there's a lot of functions that run through this one. Also, this one here is coming from the stator. This is where all the power is going into the controller board, and this is your AC output. So yeah, these things do go bad at some point, it seems like. I'm trying to make sure that I give it as long a life as it can possibly have, because it's 300 something bucks. So I don't have to have that bridged across. I'm gonna clean all that up. There's also, like I said, I'm going to be pulling the main grounds out of it, because this main plate here, that's the front face, has the case ground on it, but it's kind of rusty. So I'd like to make sure that the grounds are good, because that can be a cause of a lot of issues too. Is a bad ground situation. This dust, grease stuff, I don't even know what it is, but it's pretty nasty. But the cooling fins on this inverter, I think a lot of the failures that people have is when these get clogged up. These are pretty clean, so that's a good thing. I think there's, some people have it resting on soft ground, and they lose airflow to the back of this, and it overheats, and then it dies. Ooh, part numbers, I think. Yeah, 2,000 watts though, it could be pretty handy. I don't know if you're looking for a generator. Something in this size range is actually a lot more useful than you would expect. I mean, you can, if you're using it for emergency preparedness, you should be able to run most small to medium-sized refrigerators, maybe even a larger one, off of this, and charging cell phones and computers and stuff like that. So you could get by for a while in an emergency with one of these, and you might have to change what little oil that it holds a couple times in a week or something, and it holds a gallon of gas. These are common enough that they've got extended fuel tank setups where they have a different cap that goes on it, and you'll use a large boat gas tank, and it'll just feed this tank. It's pretty interesting. You can get propane conversion kits for these as well. You can do like a tri-fuel system where it'll run on propane, natural gas, or gasoline. So sometimes it is okay to go with the grain and get something that a lot of people have, because there's a lot of support for it. I'm gonna go get some towels and wipe this down a little bit. I think I may have a pack of Q-tips in here too, but I don't think I really needed to clean the epoxy potting. I don't think that's going to be critical, but a little OCD kicking in here. Since I'm already here, I might as well make it look decent. And I really wasn't making up the part about the stuff on the surface can be conductive. I don't know how much it would matter in this case, but it is what it is. I cleaned it. Those actually do look better already. I guess just softening up the corrosion and getting those brush bristles down in there. Make sure that's nice and clean. I don't want the silicone grease trapping any dirt or anything that's going to cause further corrosion in there. Yeah, I got that back in my face. That is one problem with this shop. There's a dog that likes to bark almost every time I come in here. guess I'm going to go ahead and start taking apart some of this wiring that is on the face of this. So I can remove this face plate and maybe get into some of this wiring, take it apart. If this is a reusable zip tie. It is. Thank you, Honda, for using stuff that doesn't have to cost me extra money. How nice of them. One thing to note is I don't think this 20 amp circuit breaker on the front works. I think it's stuck. So I'm going to have to solve that issue too. But I think most of this stuff's pretty standard, with the exception of this piece that ties into that load sensing connector on the control board. That part is what has the LED bulbs on the front that don't work. However, if this was not functioning, it would not run. You unplug it, it stops running. And that control, I think that has a lot to do with the control of the eco throttle and all that too. So it does work, but the bulbs don't, which I don't really care. It's got an oil alert and overload protection kind of thing, so don't go over 2,000 watts and keep oil in it, and those bulbs don't matter at all. I think I can live with that, because it's probably not cheap to replace that either. I'm not going to take the socket out of it. I don't know what I'm going to do about these two wires here. They appear that they're held in with something, and I'm not sure what. No idea. This is just like a, I'm almost wondering if they're crimped in there, clamped in there somehow. Because I doubt they would have soldered that directly in. That doesn't seem like something a mass-produced product would have like that. It just looks like they're pushed in there like speaker terminals. They don't pull straight out. Huh. Well, that's not the connector I need anyway. Connectors we're worried about are this one and this one. I was hoping to get this whole harness out of here. Let's see if I can bring you closer. Just have a look. Get a flashlight in there. See what we can see. Be a little difficult to sell. Yeah, you can kind of see the green. It's got green death on it, on the little pins right there. Yep, you can sort of see that. Well, there's one pin and this connector over here. One pin right in the middle. But yeah, you can see it as like kind of the darker discolored one there. But it's kind of got some green death too. The green crusties. So we're going to resolve that. And the way you do that, I'm also going to, kind of make sure that these female terminals have good tension on them. They don't feel like they're making good contact with the pins on the board. Yeah, heat and vibration over the years will loosen them up, and I think that's kind of what's happened. I don't have all my tools in here, so I would normally use like a little pick or something to Take this little lock tab out of the way. That's gonna be tricky. Tricky. And my hands are cold. Last thing you want to do is break the lock tab too, because then the terminal kind of just pushes out when you go to push the connector in. My seating arrangements are not ideal either. I'm sitting on a speaker box. It's not very comfortable. Yeah, it foams up, and I guess, you know, it'll go back to a liquid and kind of get down in the connector a little bit. See if I can use that to loosen up the terminals. I've had some pretty greasy computer cases just over, you know, they get gross. Seems like people who use computers are disgusting. I don't understand why a computer that's supposed to be beige ends up being brown. And it's not the browning from it, the UV affecting the plastic. We're talking just nasty. I don't understand that, but that stuff, that glass cleaner, takes it off pretty good. Alright, that's good. I really can't even get you guys an angle while still being able to work on this. It would be pretty hard to show you with the lighting conditions as well. I think the corrosion is still affecting it. Where's the brush? Yeah, I mean, that takes the green crusties off pretty well. I guess I will do a shameless plug for this stuff, because it seems to work quite well for things other than cleaning glass, too. It does a good job cleaning glass, don't get me wrong. It's called Sprayway. Not a sponsor, but somebody at one of the retail jobs I had told me. I worked at a car parts store for a while, and my manager was like, hey, use this stuff, and we sell it, it's good stuff, we'll just store use it, use this kind. And I'm like, oh, okay, why don't we just use like Windex? She was like, because this works better. And I started using it, and then liked it, and got to using it myself, and then it being just the closest thing to spray on things when you're trying to clean whatever, I just started using it for random things and realized it works pretty good for a lot of stuff. But there is not any green crusties on there, and it doesn't have ammonia in it, and I don't think it's got like acid in it, so I don't think we're gonna have a problem with corrosion developing again. But that looks a lot better already. Wow. Wow. I'm impressed. That's pretty nice. This stuff's not very expensive either. It's a couple or $3 at like Walmart. It's not some crazy special stuff that you can't find anywhere and it costs an arm and a leg. It's just something you can get anywhere. It's just in an aerosol can. Not a sponsor, but you see that blue and white can, that's what it is. Wow. it worked on that one too. I think it might have been able to do that without having to pull the pins out. It's really not that fun to pull the pins out, but I figured I probably should. It's not hard to get in here to do this again, so I'm willing to take the risk that I didn't just, you know, do a permanent repair on it. I'll probably wait to put the silicone grease on it until later too, since I didn't. I don't want to trap this stuff in there with the silicone grease, because it air dries. But you put the silicone grease in there, and that stuff's kind of stuck in there. I don't have a way to blow that out and dry it off either. So I'm gonna leave it be. Just leave it plain for now. Well, I think we might be good on the electrical stuff for now as far as those connectors. Fire it up and wiggle them around, see what we get after I dry this up and brush it out. These I don't think had a problem. They're pretty heavy duty contacts in there, but just to be safe. Alright. Yeah, sitting on that box kind of makes my back hurt, so change that position a little bit. That's probably going to be pretty loud when I run this, just because we're in an enclosed area. It's wide open, so there's no sound deadening from this end. So don't be off-put by any loud noise you hear. If you think I lied to you and told you it was quiet. For a generator, it is really quiet. Some of those things are deafening. Some of those regular style generators with the open sides and just your traditional generator, those things are just extremely loud, especially with a Tecumseh engine on them. They sound like they're going to blow up at all times. Probably because they do blow up at all times. It's a nice elbow, isn't it? Not much I can do. Alright, where's the last plug? So I figured out what I'm going to do for, I guess, in the, in the interim, while while you're staring at my elbow. I'll give you some good news. These camera angles are not going to be a problem much longer. Probably the next video or two is going to be a little bit different. I've come up with a way to make a boom style camera stand. There we go. Basically going to take some metal stuff and make a adjustable boom stand, and you'll get a more overhead view, and that might actually help me with situating the lighting as well. Pretty excited about that, since this thing is now working. Even without being able to put this faceplate together, I should still be able to, I believe I'll be able to run the welder off of it at lower power. I don't think I can go full power. I think it pulls, I've never tripped a breaker with it, a 15 amp breaker with it, but it says it could take a maximum of 20 amps, but I don't even run it at half power, so I imagine it'll be less than 13. So running the welder, you know, we'll have a video of that. I might set you up with some like welding goggles over the lens there. Then you might see the red flashing lights in this recording, so that might not work. You might just get the you know, the TV style bright light flash when someone welds, not the cool welder vision where you can actually watch the puddle move, which is my favorite. I like watching videos where people are welding and you get to see them moving the puddle around. I think it's interesting. Yeah, so that's going to change. I'll be able to do that this weekend. Probably make a video of me making the stand for this camera. That being said, I think we're ready to start it up and wiggle the connector around and see if we've made a difference. All right. I think it tried to make me look stupid because I pushed the plate back in and it didn't go into eco throttle. So, but since it is working and I understand what the problem is, it's usable. I think I'm going to go ahead and just put it back together, or at least as much as it was before, because I can use it with the front plate like that. I do need it to stay, I would assume, because of the extreme power requirements and sudden power requirements of a welder, that I would need it to stay out of eco throttle. It's one of those instances where it might be better to not use it. Your weld quality is going to change drastically since your power is going to change when this thing decides to throttle up from eco, you know, its idle speed up to what it needs to power the welder. that's my theory. I can always test that. It just means I get to weld some more, and I'm okay with that. So, actually, I kind of feel like throwing down some weld bead right now. I want to test this theory now. So, there's going to be a part 2 to this video because we're already at 40 minutes, and we got to break them up at some point, you know. So I'm gonna finish putting this back together, and I'm gonna do a jump cut, and I'm gonna put something down on this table so I don't catch it on fire. You know, at least something to catch the slag. We're gonna do a little bit of welding because I'm curious if this generator will handle it. You don't have to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning either. This building is massive, and the ceiling is open, and it's you know, this is the draftiest building I think I've ever been in. I'm pretty close to being outside anyway, with as much air movement that's in here. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm not like going to sleep with the generator running. So that being said, I'll be back with part 2.